This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelley Bydlon.
Welcome to Long Shots. I'm Kelley Bydlon. He's Wes Reynolds. We are without Matt Brown this week. It's okay, though. We power on. Wesley, the man with the winner from last week. How we doing?
We're doing well. Finally get on the board here with Cam Young. An exciting Players Championship, certainly. Not the winner I thought I was going to get. I thought I was going to get Ludvig Åberg home as he looked dominant. Led pretty much throughout midway Friday all the way through Sunday. And then it came apart for him on the back nine. Hit a couple bad swings, pulled a drive, hit two consecutive water balls, by the way, on the 12th and the 13th, and he was essentially finished for the championship. And then it looked like you and I were going to join on Matt Fitzpatrick as he inherited the lead and had a one-shot lead going into 17. Played it a little bit conservative, about 28 feet from the hole. You know, take your three, just don't go in the water on that island green. And then Cam Young hits it to within 10 feet, makes his birdie, and ties. So 13 under. Schauffele, by the way, did post 11 under. So he was the leader in the clubhouse, a couple groups ahead. And then Cameron Young just hit an absolute missile on 18. I believe it was by shot length, the longest ever drive that had ever been hit at the 18th hole, just positioned perfectly. I think he had like 90 yards to the pin. He ends up making par because Fitz goes through the fairway on the right and puts it in the pine straw in the trees. So he had to lay up out of it and eventually makes bogey. And Cameron Young, your winner at 35-1. We've been talking about him on Long Shots all year. It's like, okay, he's going to win a big one at some point, but when is it going to be? Because he's just a different player now that he finally got that win at the Wyndham, was the best American player at the Ryder Cup. And you knew it's going to be a big signature event or it's going to be a major or something. And Cameron Young just kind of hung in there on Sunday, just kept hanging around, you know, was one or two back from Ludvig, and then Ludvig came apart, and all of a sudden they were in position. Robert McIntyre was kind of a bullet, had to dodge at least a little bit too, because he was kind of worrying me as the danger man. I was like, oh man, you know, he's going to make another birdie and he's going to post, and I'm going to have to buy out on some Robert McIntyre. But fortunately, that did not happen. We end up 1-2-5. Instead, we were actually 1-2-3-4 at one point on the leaderboard on Sunday because Victor Hovland was there and then he kind of fell back. But I felt a pretty good tournament for the crew, you know, in terms of placements and whatnot. I was hoping we'd both get Fitzpatrick home, but Fitz settles for the runner-up. We knew he was going to play well. He was going to putt better, certainly in Florida after coming and being kind of a disaster on the West Coast. But Cameron Young, now a big game hunter, as he is now in the top 5 in the world golf rankings.
Yeah, I think perfectly said by you at the end there. It's Cam Young, man. It's very quickly turning into, man, it only might look like 2 wins, 2 wins on the resume. But, oh, boy, all of a sudden over the past, 9 months, kind of as you just detailed, Wes, it is really feeling like Cam Young has evolved into big game hunter, right? And it was, I thought, pretty clear down the stretch of that tournament. And look, great last round of the Players, great last 9 holes. Ludvig, all the talent in the world. He's had trouble now at a few of these tournaments, kind of closing things out or really getting in the mix down the stretch, kind of plays his way out of it. And you know what, Wes, I don't even know, like, I do think it's fair to say he played his way out of it, but oh my gosh, the quality of golf that was played down the stretch by Cameron Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, Robert McIntyre, and Xander Schauffele, just really putting the pressure on just to keep them in the mix. I think all those guys could have been there possibly no matter what Ludvig ended up doing. I thought really impressive kind of rounds and closes by all 4 of those guys for us to kind of take forward. But yeah, man, I was confident with Fitz when he got kind of into the lead. It was like, man, especially the way he was driving the ball. It was just, hit the ball, pick up the tee and start walking. He knew exactly where it was going. And with, like you said, the the putting bouncing back, and then what he's able to do from a ball striking standpoint. It didn't feel like he was going anywhere, and he really didn't, right? It was just kind of a race down the stretch with Cameron Young. But, same time, I'm buying on Cameron Young live, because it was like, this guy ain't going anywhere either, man. He's matching you with every tee shot fits, right? Going down there and putting it, giving himself a birdie look. It really did feel like for those last few holes, who was going to make or miss the big putt when it mattered most. Frankly, I didn't really, I think we could say Fitz a bit of a mishit right on 18, but I wasn't really planning on one of those two making a mistake. They both looked so solid down the stretch, and they didn't really. I mean, I guess we could say that was a bit of a mistake by Fitz on 18, but he still gave himself a look, right? Like, I didn't think that was a horrible misplay.
When you look at it, too, it's like maybe, Matt Fitzpatrick, you could make a great argument, should have won this tournament, not because he was just close, but the fact that he had one bad hole, really, throughout the entire week. I think he missed the fairway on 18 all 4 days. He had, and I believe when you accumulate it through 4 rounds, he was 3 over par on the finishing hole, because he made that bogey on Sunday. He made double on Saturday after he made birdies at 16 and 17. Birdied it on Friday and then bogeyed it on Thursday. So he was 3 over on the 18th hole. There you go. You make 4 pars and you're 15 under and you're 2 clear of everybody. So that was really, I thought, the difference, because Fitzpatrick, in terms of driving accuracy, I believe was 5th in the field. I'm just retallying my numbers here. He was actually from the guys that made the cut, he was 2nd in the field, 76.8% fairways hit. Number 1, actually, with his one drive that he hit on Friday. This got off to a bad start for all of us, because Colin Morikawa, you have to mention that. Withdrawals after one hole, tweaked something on the range or in the gym, or, kind of a Rory deal like at the Arnold Palmer the week before, plays one hole. And all of a sudden, man, a lot of people that used him in the one and dones this week raised his hand. Not only cost you the outright, but a placement you might have bet, or a matchup, because he started the round. And well, I was like, I'm getting texts like on Thursday morning, because he teed off early. This is before I even wake up. You're more of an early riser out here because of a numbers game than I am. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, because I've been really ticked off with how some of the results have been going earlier in the year. I was like, well, that's just effing great. Like here we go. This is going to be a disaster. And then we end up having a pretty good tournament.
Yeah, we talk about the mental side of betting golf all the time, and if you're doing it week in, week out, it's look, Wes, I frankly, I think I've had a pretty good start to the season. I feel like most of these tournaments, I've had a pretty good read on the board. In fact, I think for the couple that I feel like I've been a little off on, I was able to recognize that kind of going in. And we talked about it on the pod. Just tournaments I wasn't as in love with, and man, I'll tell you, the past couple of weeks, they've been brutal. They have been brutal. I'm one and done both weeks for me. Morikawa and Rory the week before pulling out. It's just they kill some of your one and done events. And Matt's not here. Always a planned week off for him, but I think it's 3 weeks in a row now for him. One and done that the guy's withdrawn. So it's absolutely brutal. And if you're playing in bigger money contests with like those, it can be a lot to overcome. I think the other thing I've had to figure out the hard way here, a couple weeks ago, it happened with Jake Knapp. If you're betting I think Kalshi's a great out for you to add for betting options for everybody to be looking at. You can often find better odds to be betting into. But those markets, you don't get the nice little refunds that you get at sportsbooks. Those just, your money's gone if you're betting yes on these top 20 finishes and stuff. So look, something I'm glad I know now. It frankly was probably always going to have to learn the hard way, but you'd rather someone else learn that for you and pass that information along. So man, like I think last week, just me tallying up results from even this past week, it's just, you're like, all right, like I was able to squeak out a little bit of a profit, but oh man, you're looking at Morikawa stuff, and you're just like, this shouldn't even be. It should
have been bigger. And who knows if he was going to win? I think he probably had a good look at a top 20 based on how he was playing coming in. But
it could always be meaningless. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. It was another exciting Players Championship, and that's what it is with all that water. And it certainly played a factor on the back nine. Even some of the chasers that were like, okay, they're like one good shot away from really being right there. I think like Brian Harmon, Jacob Bridgman, yet again, who ends up T5 with the rookie Sudarshan Yelamaraju. I think I got that right. I
think you did too. Yep.
Yes.
I think you did too.
On the first try, but they end up tying for fifth with Ludvig. But there were some chasers kind of lurking there. Man, it felt like Ludvig's tournament though, but just, he's a young player. And I think Gil Alexander asked me about that on a numbers game. I was like, I think it's just a young player learning how to close out events.
Yeah.
And that's all there is. I don't know if there's something to it, but everybody kind of goes through this, including Cameron Young, where he had all of those runners up before he finally closed out the Wyndham last year. Young players, some of them don't close the deal right away. So I don't think that this is oh my God, stay away from Ludvig. I think Ludvig is going to be a factor the rest of the season, the way he's striking the ball, especially off the tee.
Yep. Yeah, I think for him, just to see him put together consistent quality play is what you're looking for. And that's all I'm looking for at this point. I'm with you. I think he's still very young. I think we need to give him time. I think it's some of these guys, feels like Jake Knapp's brand new on the tour, right? And it's like, okay, you look at he's 29 years old. He's not a kid. You know what I mean? A lot of these guys
Jor Bjornsson, the same thing, who was in the final pairing with Ludvig. That was the first bullet. It's like we had to dodge for an outright. Jor Bjornsson was right there. And then you took that snowman early on, and it was like, he's done. He's not going to be able to regather himself after that, and really didn't. I mean, kind of kept it to where it didn't really go downhill where he totally plummeted. But that young players, man, that happens in these major championships. These are, I say major championship, the fifth major, I guess, if you want to call it, but these big time tournaments, that's why usually these experienced shoes are the guys to go with.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll transition. It was great players. I'm with you. I think Florida Spring's been awesome so far. The whole golf season, I thought it feels like has been incredible so far. We've had some wild finishes. Really exciting.
We've had 3 straight weeks. 3 straight weeks where the guy that you thought was going to win the tournament doesn't win the tournament.
Yeah. So, guess what? Golf season's probably been really fun for you if you've been on the right side of multiple of those. And if you've been on the wrong side, You're probably sick of it by now.
Sometimes that's the difference, right? That's the difference. Yeah. Somebody, if you had Daniel Berger, you feel like you got a little bit cheated at Bay Hill. If you had Shane Lowry at the Cognizant, I had Akshay Bhatia going in, who blew a lead, but still had a 2-shot lead going in the final round at Pebble Beach and is in the final group. So I'm like, okay, he's lost a little momentum, but he's still got the 54-hole lead. So we've had a lot of those this year. These are hard to win, man. Outrights are hard to hit. Yep. And, some years you get better breaks than others.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. 100%. We got a busy few weeks coming up here. So we got 3 more weeks and then it's the Masters. And for a lot of people that follow the golf season schedule, you kind of know how this works. We're going to go over to the Valspar Championship this week. That's what Wes and I will be talking about today, breaking down all of our bets for that. You're going to get a lot of people that tee it up for this event. You're going to get a lot of people that choose to skip this, go play in one of the Texas events before we get to the Masters. So if you're wondering why the field looks like it does this week and honestly over the next couple weeks, that's usually what these guys are doing. Either they're shutting it down completely, getting ready, doing their own Masters preparation now, or it's play this week or play one of the Texas events and roll into the Masters. It's another big week, though, in sports. Obviously, we got the NCAA tournament going on. Make sure to get our March Mania betting guide over at vsin.com right now. Go to vsin.com/guide. You can download the guide for just $19.99 or become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Get all the March Mania betting guide including all the info that we are doing throughout the tournament over at vsin.com. Real quick, Wes Reynolds, you're a big college basketball bettor. Who's winning the NCAA tournament?
I hate to go chalk, but everybody's going to go chalk this year because the chalk is that much better than the rest of the field. I think Duke. I think John Shire gets his first one this year, finally, led by maybe potential number 1 pick Cameron Boozer and a really talented team and a really good defensive team. So I'm going with Duke to cut down the nets in my hometown of Indianapolis.
Man, you know me, I'm an NBA nut, so I can't remember the last time we've had an NCAA tournament where you're rolling in with some of these NBA prospects that not only are not only the first picks up for grabs, but we expect the first about 7 guys off the board to be very, very talented. And gosh, almost all of them are playing insignificant NCAA tournament moments. So it's going to be a fun tournament from that standpoint as well. Okay, Valspar Championship. Let's go over there. Head over to the West Coast of Florida. This will be a full field event, 133 golfers currently in the field, at least my most up-to-date numbers, unless I've missed 1 or 2 withdrawals this morning. 133, we will have top 65 in ties, make the cut. We'll have a normal cut this week. This is played out of Innisbrook Resort in the Copperhead course, a par 71, a little over 7,300 yards. You're going to have 6 water danger holes, the rough about close to 4 inches. We've grown out to again this week. So another week we'll be playing with thick rough. Fairways about 26 yards on average with 74 bunkers. Poet Triv for the greens, about 5,800 square feet for that. Last year's winner was Viktor Hovland. He was 11 under and he was 50-1 as I'm looking back on Wes. And oh boy, do I wish I had some 50-1 because I remember staring at Hovland last year, but definitely wasn't on him.
Because remember we talked about it last week with the players when he shot an 80 in the first round and his game was like nowhere. And all of a sudden he had drifted. I think he closed 50. He might have been even higher than that in the market. And then all of a sudden he holds off Justin Thomas. Jacob Bridgman, by the way, was right there in the mix in that final group, ended up finishing 3rd. And, sometimes that's how you play this a little bit. We go through all the stats, which we'll go through in the modeling later in the program. But sometimes it's a market. Sometimes it's just like, okay, a player kind of reaches a price. And those that got in on Viktor Hovland at the right time were certainly rewarded here last year.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And look, this is probably the time of year where you see stuff like that happen, right? I do, Cameron Young even this week, right? 35-1, even him as long as that number. Look, bettors, the markets overreact to early season success just like in any other sport, right? Or lack of success. And some of these golfers, odds will get longer or shorter because of that. So, we've seen the opposite with a Siwoo Kim, right? He's been 20-something-1 every single week because he's been so consistent with his good finishes this year. But yeah, some of these guys getting forgotten about. We've talked about win equity on this podcast for years now of who can really go out there and win tournaments. And look, Cameron Young was a question mark for a long time. But these guys, a Viktor Hovland, a Cameron Young, these guys can now they've shown they can go out there and win these big events. So yeah, there are worse things I think you can do than look for drifts with guys that can go out and win golf tournaments. All right, Valspar Championship this week. This is what the odds board is currently looking like over at DraftKings. I say that because I am going to compare with a couple here. Xander Schauffele plus 1050 right now. Matt Fitzpatrick 15-1. Viktor Hovland 19-1. And man, even these have been shuffling back and forth past couple days. Akshay Bhatia plus 1950. Patrick Cantlay 2150. Justin Thomas, Jacob Bridgman 2250. Everybody else 25-1 or longer. Wes, I'm going to start right at the top of the board with you. Xander Schauffele, Matt Fitzpatrick. Are you surprised there's as big of a gap between those two as there are? Because I'll be honest, I was a little bit, and Circa has these two both as co-favorites for this event.
Yeah, and it's probably a little bit of recency bias based on the fact that both were contenders last week. I mean, you're looking 2nd and 3rd, by the way, with Fitz and Schauffele, respectively. Schauffele's always played pretty solid here. I think he was 12th here last year, 5th in 2024, 12th in 2022. Fitz has a 5th place here in 2022. So not really surprising that they're the favorites. You thought maybe a couple guys would have been a little bit closer. This, by the way, is a pretty good field. I think like 9 of the top 25 in the world golf ranking is a better field than normal because some guys, because we're so close to the Masters, some guys, like you said, are using this as a tune-up. Some guys are going to use one of the Texas events in Houston or San Antonio. But yeah, you're starting to see Viktor, not too far behind being in these returning champion, played solidly at the Players. Last week, he was on my card, ended up T13. Akshay, of course, recent winner. Bridgman played well. Justin Thomas, another guy to give a shout. He finished top 10 last week. Just really couldn't make anything and make a charge on Sunday. This is his 2nd week back from surgery, or the off-season back surgery. So, Yeah, I mean, not maybe surprised that those are the two favorites. Thought that maybe it'd be a little bit more condensed, though.
Yeah, I was. I was seeing it more like Circa was, where nothing against Xander Schauffele. I think he's great. You and I have bet a lot of Matt Fitzpatrick so far this season, and I don't really see any reason to stop. I actually think Fitzpatrick is arguably the best player in this field right now. And yeah, I think just kind of Circa having both those guys as co-favorites was not as surprising to me as I thought it would be. I think a couple of weeks ago, I would have been more surprised by hearing that a couple of weeks ago. But just, comparing books, most places, yes, do have Xander Schauffele as the firm favorite in this event. Okay, let's dive into the course because we do have, I think it's an interesting and fun one this week. You have your write-up up at VSiN.com. As always, everybody go check that out. Wes does a great deep dive into the courses, into the fields each and every week. So if you are listening or watching along on YouTube to this podcast, make sure you go check out Wes's article every week. But Wes, what should everybody expect when we head over to Innisbrook this week?
Yeah, the Copperhead course. So cue the Steve Earle Copperhead Road song as the theme for this week at the Innisbrook Resort and Golf Club. It's in Palm Harbor, Florida, which is 20 miles north of downtown St. Pete, west of Tampa. So in that greater Tampa St. Pete area. Traditional, like I think tree line positional courses. This is less than driver off the tee. A lot of layups. Got to move the ball in both directions. Par 71, 73.52. It did get a redesign in 2015. It's a little bit atypical, I guess, of some Florida courses where it's a little bit more of like a Carolina field. That's why I think Sedgefield for the Wyndham is maybe a good analogous course to this week. Very narrow fairways too. I think fourth narrowest on tour. It's like 26 yards on average. So same length as Sawgrass last week, but only it is a par 71. You mentioned the water, 6 of 18, 74 bunkers. There are 5 par 3s actually here on the par 71 and 4 par 5s. Usually you only get like 3 par 5s on a par 71 and then 9 par 4s. And then, of course, the noticeable one, get our ready for the snake pit, which is the signature stretch of the closing holes. We had the bear trap a couple weeks ago. Now we have the snake pit, 16 through 18. No Valspar winner, actually, in the history of the tournament has actually played the snake pit under par. So 16 long par 4, narrow fairway, water on one side. Par 3, 17, 215, tiny green, bunkers and trees on both sides. And then the 18th, the par 4, really sloping greens. Really, the greens are the most difficult on that hole. Fairways and rough, rye overseed. Greens are now a Poa Triv overseed, a little bit of Bermuda creeping through, but 12 on the stamp, probably 12 and a half. So kind of like your average speed. They moved the rough actually a couple of years ago, actually 3 years ago, they moved the rough closer to the greens. So it's made the chipping and some of the around the green stuff a little bit more difficult. 10 to 12 under have been the winning scores the last 3 years. If you're looking for, I think, some correlated courses, Sawgrass, obviously, Harbor Town. I did mention Sedgefield a little bit, Riviera, Colonial, TPC River Highlands up there in Connecticut for the Travelers. So some of the guys that have played well at these events have certainly played well over the years at Innisbrook.
Yep, absolutely. Very difficult course, like you've talked about, Wes. I think that's definitely something the past couple years, and I took note of for this week for sure. It's just the around the green play and scrambling kind of mattering more here over the past couple years. We've seen it in scoring stuff, right? Fewest birdies per 72 holes. Caught that note from Ron Kloss over at BetSperts. That's how hard of a course we're talking about. I like the different layout. I'm going to be that guy who mentions it all the time. Whenever we get a little bit of of abnormal layout, I like it. And par 71 that you mix up with 5 par 3s. And I don't, frankly, par 3 success is probably of any holes is probably the toughest for us to handicap. So I don't know that I should love it, but I think it's cool just to see a little bit of a different course. And look, this is, you get a lot of players that say positive things about this. yeah, they get to do different things off the tee. You're going to see guys dial back with driver usage a little bit here. You're going to be forced to hit a little bit shorter at some holes. Other holes, that will be a great benefit. Long approach shots pretty much coming everywhere, right? This really is a big-time ball striker course, and what you can do, keep it accurate and long if you can off the tee, but then it's about finding greens and really trying to mitigate the problems that you might run into around the greens scrambling here to save par on a very tough course. So fairways, greens, you're looking for guys like that this week. That was really how I kind of handicap things this week. But this is one of the more difficult courses that we're going to see on tour. In a very, very difficult approach course, and where approach shots really, really matter. So I know Matt jokes about it a lot. Approach is always the most important thing for us, Wes. I don't know about you, but it's doubling down even more on that this week for me at this course. So love this event. I haven't had a great amount of success here, frankly. But I do like handicapping this event every year. So we'll see how we do this year. Let's see. Anything else jump out to you about the course we should talk through before we kind of move on to what we started plugging into models?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you look at the previous winners of this event, there's not really a prototypical type of player here that has won. Keep in mind, Sam Burns won this back-to-back years in 2021 and 2022. Bomber off the tee. Gary Woodland, former winner, bomber off the tee. And then you get guys that are shorter hitters like Peter Malnati, who won here as a long shot a couple of years ago and just a really good putter. And, pretty straight driver of the golf ball, certainly not very long. Adam Hadwin, former winner here, kind of a consistently good approach guy. So not one particular player wins this thing.
All right, Wes, let's transition into stats that we looked at this week. We ended up modeling using the different sites that we've talked about here before. Let's see. For me, kind of hit on it already. Heavy approach. I did go strokes gained off the tee small. Think you want to be a little careful with that this week. We are going to see reduced driver usage here this week. So the accuracy off the tee is going to be extremely important this week, but you are going to see a lot of guys pull different clubs out of the bag to get that done, find different ways to get that done. So just something to keep in mind if you are doing your own handicapping at home, pulling up your own stats. I did strokes gained off the tee small, and then I did punch in some good drives gained and accuracy, just fairways gain stats to kind of meld that out. I didn't go heavy with off the tee stats though this week. Really went heavy on strokes gained approach, proximity buckets, 175 plus, 200 plus. Really looked at green and regulations. Want to get that percentage in. It's not one that I usually model often, and when I do, I usually bring it up just because it is kind of rare for me to kind of look at just basic green and regulation stats. But I think this is one of those courses that has just shown us over the years if fairways and greens matter so much. I mean, you can just stick it on greens and figure out what you got to do from there. That's a way to go out and win this event. So greens and regulation for me. Did do a little opportunities gained, which is, we've talked about this before, approach scoring stat gives you a birdie look within 15 feet of the cup. So who's hitting their approach shots close to the pin is really what that's looking at. Par 5 scoring, I did do that. We've talked about par 71, 4 par 5s. These are tough par 5s. It's just, once again, this is a tough course. You'd got to be able to score on the par 5s, I think, to really rack up enough birdies to stay in this. So that is something that I factored in. And then we talked about it a little bit. Definitely upweighted for me is we're around the green and scrambling stats this week more than I've looked at really the past couple years for this event. Just think that has shown to matter a little bit more. So around the green, scrambling, bogey avoidance, kind of my normal kind of save your ass stats that you'll be looking at. And then I also plugged in, I've gone without looking at putting stats before with this event. I plugged in strokes gained, just strokes gained regular putting in a little bit this week. Wes didn't go heavy. I think this is a little bit of a, if you want to forget about no putt week or whatever we used to call and joke about with that. I think you kind of lean that way this week. You're definitely looking for guys that get it done better tee to green. I'll be okay with a weaker putter up there. But that's kind of what I looked at. What all did you factor in this week?
Yeah, and a lot of that, and I'll tie in the weather forecast here to not a lot of rain in the Tampa-St. Pete area in the lead up. So firm and fast, you would expect. Wind's going to blow a little bit on Thursday. Temperature's going to be in the mid to high 70s pretty much all week. So really, it looks like ideal conditions here. So firm and fast, and that means the fairways, but also the greens are going to be firm and fast. I started with approach like you did. I think that's the number one stat this week. And if you look at previous winners here, everybody has really been like top 5 to 10 on approach during their winning weeks, except Malnati was kind of an outlier because he putted so well back in 2024. But strokes gained approach, I felt very important. Proximity, 175 plus or 200 plus. A third of the approach shots, by the way, are going to be about 200 yards or more here.
Yeah.
Because you are taking less than driver off the tee because it is positional with the dog legs and even some double dog legs on a couple of these holes. From an off the tee standpoint, I went with good drive percentage, good drives gain, whatever you want to call it. Players only hit the fairway about 56% of the time here. So I think good drives, not only measures off the tee, but also approach, because you're going to club down. So you're trying to hit these narrow ass fairways here that only about 26 yards wide on average. And I think it takes account to a player. Can you reach the green even if you miss the fairway here? So good drives. You mentioned scrambling, which I did because that thicker rough a couple years ago got moved closer to the green. So you've seen the average scrambling percentage decrease basically each year over the last 3. So I thought that was important. Bogey avoidance, you hit on it earlier, lowest birdie or better percentage of any course on the PGA Tour. And the players are going to grind out pars here. You're going to have to grind these out. So I thought bogey avoidance, strokes gained par 5 I included. And then I did par 3. 3 of the par 3s, by the way, are longer than 200 yards. So strokes gained par 3 over 200 yards. I think the one other one, or one of the 5 other ones, is just under the mark at 195. So basically long par 3s here. And then with putting, I did just general putting too. I didn't specify the surface necessarily because you do got some dormant Bermuda and some POA overseed. These greens are actually very, very true and very, very smooth. These are not bumpy greens. They'll have some contours just the way that they're shaped. But this is a spike putting week. You look last year like Victor, who's not known as the greatest putter necessarily, second in strokes gained putting.
Yeah.
Gained about 7.36 over 4 rounds. Malnati was third, 8.32. Taylor Moore the year before, just under 5, was 9th in the field. Sam Burns, 5 strokes when he was 8th in putting. And then the year before, he was 3rd in putting, gaining over 9 strokes. So you got to have that spike putting week, and that can come and go a little bit. So that's something I think you got to use a little bit of general putting basically this week. And then a couple other ones if you want to use. I can understand if you want to specify OTT for the less than driver, if you want to use like distance from the edge of the fairway, I could certainly understand that. I didn't use all that much, but very similar basically what I did this week. In terms of the proximity, maybe 175 to 200 might be more important because you might get a little more roll on these fairways than the 200 plus, even though 200 plus is kind of like the plurality figure for approaches here at Innisbrook, just about a third or a little less than. So that's what I basically did this week. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, with what these guys are going to have to do off the tee, the long iron shots are going to come into play. So almost anybody you're looking at, those are going to come into play. Like Wes is saying, yeah, it might be one guy might have 195, the other guy might have 208, right? But I think you need to be in those ranges and looking at those. And you and I think, kind of do the same things too. We're like, all right, it's not truly covering us on all the par 3s, but guess what? If I'm looking at proximity stats of guys that can hit 200 plus yards on an approach, it covers me and gives me an idea of what guys are going to look like on a 200 yard par 3 as well. So that's kind of how I handled that. I didn't really do any extra handicapping for the par 3s this week. Okay, Wes, let's roll through bets. I don't know about you. This was kind of a fairly easy card for me to construct. I think there were some guys that I kind of knew I wanted to play. some guys I ended up playing that, just through the research and handicapping and kind of figure out, okay, I think there's some value here. And man, then there's a lot of guys in this event that either I still have questions about or I'm just out on right now. So, as you probably picked up on, I did play Matt Fitzpatrick again. When we were talking about odds at the beginning of the show, him being anything longer than Xander Schauffele, I'm okay. And that is not a knock against Xander. I think these guys should be co-favorites for this event. I don't think there should be really as big of a gap as there is even between Xander and Fitzpatrick this week. He has been awesome all year. You and I, it feels like I've been betting him every single week. Second highest rated guy for me this week. Xander did rate out slightly higher, but slightly. But that was using just some longer term stuff. Last 16 rounds, Fitzpatrick third off the tee, third on approach, 11th around the green, 19th with the putter, 5th in par 5 scoring, 7th in driving accuracy, just kind of everything that you are looking for here. Recent results. Second last week, T41 the week before that, T24 at T14, the ninth place finish, all in his last 5 events. Again, it feels like Wes and I've been betting him every week, so if you listen to this podcast, apologies, going right back to Fitz here. He was, I think last week, this is where there was no doubt, Wes, that I was going back to him again this week. It sucks that, sucks you don't get a 40-1 home, and it sucks you got to bet at 15-1 or whatever, whatever he's going to be this week. But I just... What he did off the tee last week, gained over three plus strokes on approach, 5 of his last 6 events, and then off the tee, especially in that final round, just looking so cool, calm, confident with that driver in hand. And like you brought up earlier, the putter, we always expected that was going to return at some point. If he's got the putting back, I think Fitz is going to be tough to beat this week. He finished T5 here in 2022, so he's shown some success at this course as well. I like Fitzpatrick this week. I bet him outright, bet a top 5 on him, and I bet a top 20 pretty large on him at even money here, stations in town. That would be we talked about different ways we bet golf. By the way, that's my favorite bet this week. It's just Matt Fitzpatrick, even money for a top 20. I love that bet in this field.
I will probably play that. I did not play him, by the way, on an outright this week, but I probably will have a top 20 placement. Placements, by the way, I post Wednesday up at vsin.com/picks. Been doing better kind of waiting till Wednesday to do that because it kind of clears my head a little bit and it opens me up to some other guys that maybe I didn't play for outrights that have been getting home. But I'm going to start my card. I think this could be a Brooks week, Kelly, and I'm going to play Brooks. Didn't get the 30. 27 was the best I found this morning here in town. We know that Brooks, you talk about putter returning. He needs a putter return because it's been gone for about 2 years, and this year is no exception. 152 in strokes gained putting. He was better at the Players, by the way, last week. Still lost a little, but not nearly as much as he was losing. T13, by the way, he was 9th at the Cognizant. The event before. Iron, he's hitting the ball great. Irons have been really sharp. 3rd on the tour in strokes gained approach and 5th for tee to green. And now that he's back and the story of the return, the big story that he was returning and now he's working his way back onto the tour. Now that that's kind of died down a little bit, he's just getting comfort and confidence, trying to get his game right and get it all, going in the same direction at the same time. And I think he's starting to do that. So that's why I thought he was worth a chance this week at 27-1. I'll go 2 more here and then flip back to you. Guys that were kind of in the high 30s. You might have been able to get 40 earlier in the week. Sahith Theegala, 37-1 at DK, I believe, earlier this morning. 7th on debut at the Valspar here in 2022. No top 10s, by the way, in all of 2025 because he had those oblique and neck injuries. He's already got 3 of them now in 2026. And he was almost going to, he was lurking. He was almost going to get another top 10 and had a bad back 9 on the Players where he shot a 40 on Sunday, T32. But he's getting back to that form. He was almost approaching the top 10 and was in the solid top 15 in the official world golf ranking at the end of 2024. He's starting to play some consistent golf. Sahith Theegala. And then a model play, I'm going to keep playing him. Like you talk about keep playing Fitz. I'm going to keep playing Nicolai Højgaard, who is just under the 40-1 mark this week. He's cooled down a little bit. He's 24th at the Arnold Palmer. He was 27th last week at the Players, but he had 3 top 6s in 4 events. and he's got really no weakness in his game. You look like off the tee, he's on the list. Approach, he's there. Around the greens, he's there. Even putting, he was there. 47th, by the way, in the official world golf ranking. So he's in decent shape to get that Masters invitation. Obviously, if you win, the point is moot and you're going to get an invite, but he's trying to get in that top 50. By the end of, by the way, next week in Houston, I believe is the cutoff for that. So now it's just focus on getting that first PGA Tour victory. I think he's going to be solidly in the field, Nicolai Højgaard. So not a lot of experience necessarily at this course, like not really a form line to speak of, but I'm just going with the guy that's playing pretty consistent golf right now, and that's Nicolai Højgaard, who's probably hitting it as well as anybody out there.
Yeah, I'm with you. That is not an outright play for me, but I did go right back to a top 20 again on Højgaard. I think that is, let's see, I'm just looking back. Yeah, top 20s on Højgaard each of the last 3 weeks for me. So yeah, I've kind of gotten burned the last two, not getting those home, but man, he's right there. And like you said, I don't think there's, what are we supposed to take away from his game? Like any week that he has a down spot, fine, he lost off the tee last week, but then he gains over 5 strokes with the putter. Like this is a guy who's gained with the putter in 5 of the last 6 events. So yeah, look, and the ball striking is what we're usually going to focus in on with him, but he's lethal with the putter right now too. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm not backing off Højgaard either. Not going to play him outright, but top 20 for sure. About plus 170 you'll find in that range on Højgaard for top 20. So I went there. My other outrights besides Fitzpatrick, I think this is kind of like you going, Brooks. I think I went to JT. I think there's still some questions. I don't know that we have all the answers that he's going to show up and play great at any event yet. But oh boy, I was caught by a little bit of surprise last week with how well he played, Wes. And I think we've seen this with JT before. We saw it with Jake Knapp last year for a little bit too, a stretch. These guys who have at times, and most of the time, have leaned on their driver and off the tee abilities when they're not going great, have been able to make up in other parts of their game. So we've seen JT, we've seen Jake Knapp both find success at some shorter courses, and in a course where he might have to take driver out of his hands, I feel a little bit more comfortable with JT's game right now. I think one of the big weaknesses or one of the big concerns that I have right now still is some of his accuracy off the tee. Okay, if we've got to take the driver out of his hands, that's fine. What he got done last week was pretty damn impressive. And in 22-1 in this field, good enough for me to get in on. He gained over 5 strokes on approach and 4 with the putter last week. I mean, if that translates over to this week, I think JT is right in the mix. So 24-1, I think anywhere in the 20s, I think he's a play. T8 last year, he finished second at this event, or T8 last week, second at this event last year at T3 in 2022. JT, I'm going to buy in. I think in this field, at this number, I'm comfortable buying in. I think you would have been harder for me to convince me to get onto Justin Thomas a week ago. This week, though, I'm good with that. So I got Fitz, I got Justin Thomas. My only other outright, been playing him in matchups, placement markets the past few weeks. It feels like the past month or so. I'm going to go to Rio Assassine. I am going to play him in the outright market. 40-1, just great ball striking numbers. Last 16 rounds, he's 6th off the tee, 10th on approach, 12th around the green, 24th par 4 scoring in this field. Look, you talked about needing a spike putting week. He's going to be that guy. The putting's not consistent. Can you get a good putting week here, though? If you can, I think he's right in the mix. Was T13 last week. He has he has 3 top 10 finishes this season already. He was T4 here a year ago. He's only started here twice. He's been T4 and T33. So I'm going to roll the dice with Rio Assassine this week in the outright market. Also bet him top 20. And then, Wes, I'll just roll through my other top 20 bets here that I've made before I kick it back over to you. Fitz in the top 20 market I mentioned earlier. Rio, I bet as well. Mentioned Nicolai Højgaard. The other 2 I bet this week. Corey Connors, I'm going to bet him. Like where his form's at right now. He finished T28, T21, T16 here the last 3 years. T13 last week. I think he could be looking good heading into this event. And then Jacob Bridgman, man, just can't ignore these numbers and the consistency anymore right now. Top 20 at plus 112. Jacob Bridgman, that is my whole card. What else do you got?
Kelley, I don't know if you're in charge of the sound or if that's Matt Brown that's usually in charge of the sound for the pod play, but I'll go ahead and do it. Rio Hisatsune for me, 42-1 earlier this morning at DraftKings. Hot form, runner-up in the Farmers at Torrey Pines, top 10 at Phoenix and at Pebble Beach, 13th at the Players. He is 61st, by the way, now in the OWGR, so he's got 2 weeks to try to get in that top 50 for the Masters invite. 4th last year, 34th the year before, so 2 made cuts for Rio Hisatsune. And then last 2, another mid-range guy, Austin Smotherman, who's also been hot lately, 55-1. He was the first-round leader, by the way, co-first-round leader last week at the Players. 2nd time in 3 weeks he's done that. Ended up T13, runner-up 3 weeks ago at the Cognizant, 8th at the American Express earlier this year, has made the cut here at the Valspar both times. But I think he's a far better and more confident player. And by the way, number 1 in strokes gained approach on the PGA Tour is one Austin Smotherman. So we know approach is going to be important this week. If he continues that consistency, I think he's going to be up there. And then one bomb, and I've already played him a couple times this year. I'm going to go back to him again. The rookie David Ford, who, of course, we know got on the PGA Tour through PGA Tour U, that point system, played at University of North Carolina last year, former, I believe, number 2 amateur. And I think he certainly had to notice watching on Sunday his 2 PGA Tour U predecessors that got their PGA Tour cards that way. By the way, Ludvig Åberg and Michael Chorbjornsson, they were the final pairing Sunday at the Players. Now, it didn't go well for him in terms of the finish, but maybe that's a little mental thing. It's like, hey, I can do this. Look at the guys that were before me, and look at them. They're at the final of the Players on a Sunday. I can do this. Ford, by the way, is going for the Valspar double. He won the Valspar Collegiate Invitational last March, not in Palm Harbor, Florida, so different course in Palm City, Florida, which I believe is about three or so hours away last March. Yeah. So he's going for that Valspar double. He's got a couple top 20s already in 2026. One of the leaders for strokes gained approach. You know, when I was looking at those guys in the field, by the way, Smotherman, Koepka, Ford, Akshay, Matt Fitzpatrick, who you mentioned, Victor, Nicolai, Xander, Hisatsune, Ludwig. They were all kind of up there. Corey Connors, who you mentioned for your placement, Bridgman. They were all up there on approach. So a lot of those names just mentioned, I think you're going to see them as contenders on Sunday for sure.
Yep, I hope so. Okay, who was kind of your first leave off? Who's going to be the biggest regret if he gets home and you didn't bet him?
I had 2, one a shorter and one a little bit longer. The shorter, Corey Connors. I'm going to play him in a placement. I did last week, and he rewarded me. I'm going to do it again. He just doesn't have a lot of the win equity, but this is like a perfect course for him. A guy that's not really long, but a guy that's such a good driver, accuracy, guy that's good with approach. Can he make a few putts? We shall see. And then Bud Cauley, who I may add, and I saw Bud Cauley as high as 75-1. He's not been setting the world on fire like he did this time last year. I think he had like 4 top 6s in 6 weeks or 3 in 4 weeks. I can't remember, but he had a lot of close calls, including at the Valspar here last year. His boy, JT, is Alabama Crimson Tide brethren, played well. Maybe that gives him a little feel good coming in this week. And JT's been saying Bud's close to getting that win. Hasn't done it yet, but I have a feeling, even though he hasn't been killing it, he's been making cuts for the most part, but Bud Cauley might be a guy that really shows well this week.
Yeah, he's been a tough one for us to figure out the past couple of years, it feels like. I'm going to go, I think Thigala, because I don't think I'm going to end up betting him, but I think you're right on, Wes. It is, watch out for it, because he's coming, and I don't know that I'm ready to jump on board this week, but man, he has looked good so far this season, really just the past few weeks. So I think he would be the one. I'm going to be kicking myself a little bit if he gets home. And then Jordan Spieth actually rated out pretty highly for me too, but I'm not a Jordan
former
Spieth
winner
bettor.
Here.
Yeah, former better. You know me, Wes, though. I don't really bet Jordan Spieth much. So whatever. Yeah. You kick rocks, good luck. Yeah, I won't be angry if he wins. Well, actually, I probably will be angry, but I'm not going to be betting it. Won't be any FOMO there. Okay. Well, thanks for checking out. If you've watched us over at YouTube, please leave any comments, any ratings that you got for us. We will gladly take that there on the podcast as well. We appreciate you listening, watching, however you take us in. Of course, Wes's article up at vsin.com. Go get all the details on the Valspar and golf, PGA Tour events every single week from Wes. He will be writing up there. We've got Masters bets that we're making here the next few weeks as well. We'll be cranking those up a little bit more. So plenty more to come here on Long Shots before we roll back to the Masters. For all of you listening, thank you for tuning in. For Wes, I'm Kelley. Good luck with all the bets this week at the Valspar Championship.